Well, hello, and welcome to week 2 of 9 Weeks to a Novel. Today is day 6, and you are in the right place if you would like to write a novel in the next 9 weeks. My name is Akira Angel, and I am your chief host, coach, and motivator in this journey. And today we are talking about building a plot using your second genre. All right, so we are going to talk about using the second genre, but we also have a few more things to talk about. That would be context changes, reveals, and other nifty tricks that you can use to make your plot really special. I wanted to cover one more time why we need to create an outline. I used to be a pantser when I first started writing, but today's stories are different than they used to be. I don't know if you've noticed, but they're becoming more complex, more interesting. The pacing is faster. In general, writing today is completely different than how it was even, back in the 80s or 90s. And it's changing all the time, right? So we always want to find new tips, tricks, and techniques, which is going to make our writing better. So today's stories really need complex themes. They need complex plots and subplots, complex characters, complex worlds that build the plot. They also need context changes and reveals. So the first few we've talked about already, the rest we're getting to today. And I was going to say, if you learn the techniques by doing this the hard way, doing all this planning and sitting down and thinking about it, over time, it becomes easier and easier for your brain to do this automatically. And I didn't realize this until I went to a party maybe a year ago with a bunch of writers. And we started a game, which all of us we would get a writing prompt, and we would all start a story. We would each write for 10 minutes, and then we would pass the story to the next author, right? And every time the stories were coming to me, I was able to literally start where that story was, take the plot, make either a context change or a reveal, and do something interesting with it before I passed it on. And by the end of the game, everybody was like, gosh, how are you able to do this? And I said, well, I guess it's just that I've trained my brain to do this over time. Because it wasn't something that I set out to do. And I really had never played that type of game before, so I didn't know whether I would be good at it or not. But it just goes to show you, I don't think there's anything special in me. I literally think it's this writing process that I'm showing you, which made me able to play that game well. All right, so first we're going to talk about context changes. And to me, this is the most powerful tool that you have as an author to deal with your reader and to create powerful change in the mind of your reader. You might be asking, what is a context change, right? You probably know what it is, but you haven't heard it described in this way. So there are 3 types of context changes. The first one is, the world is not what I thought it was. So this is usually toward the beginning, but it could be anywhere, honestly, in a novel. It would be like when Neo takes the red pill, when Lucy enters the wardrobe. I tried to give you a few more genre examples. A good one is like Eyes Wide Shut. I remember watching The Firm, and there's a point where he is running home, and then he turns up the music and he's talking in his wife's ear and he's telling her what's happening. And you can see the fear on her face. That's a context change. The world is not what I thought it was until this point. Everything is different, right? It's usually, in horror and stuff, it's usually when the people figure out that there's something horrible out there, and it's used to induce fear. But it's also used to induce wonder or, the idea of action, taking action. It's used to increase pacing. There are so many ways that you can use this in your story, right? The second type is, that person is not who I thought they were. This is often used for like a fake ally, somebody who has, been your friend, but then you find out they're not your friend. A great example of this that just came out was I think it's Red Notice with The Rock. Yeah, and the lady from Wonder Woman. That's a fantastic movie for this person is not who I thought they were. Another one is when Batman finds out who the villains really are. And that's been pretty consistent across the movies, right? He's always finding out that the people around him that he's dealing with are not who he thought they were, right? And it's great. It's a great kind of, it's not a trope, but it's a great context change to have. Because it really like kind of messes with their mind, and it's nice if you introduce the main character to that maybe at a different time than you introduce it to the reader. That's used often in mystery, right? We have a context change, which is apparent to some characters and not others, the reader and not the characters, etc., or the characters and not the reader. So these are really cool to play around with in your story. Other great examples, Glass Onion, Red Notice, The Count of Monte Cristo, Mission Impossible movies. There are so many examples of the context of people not being who you thought they were. And the last one is I am not who I thought I was. One of the best ones of this is Terminator Salvation. When they, string the guy up and then he looks down and finds out he's a cyborg. That's fantastic. It's really just such a great context change. But there are so many other, genres in which this happens. A Beautiful Mind, Fight Club, The Bourne Identity, The Sixth Sense, The Matrix, The Machinist. These aren't all sci-fi. There are oftentimes romances where we find out that, this person is not who we thought they were. Or TV shows, this can happen a lot just to kind of keep the plot rolling, right? So, these context changes are absolutely fantastic when you can put them in. And they're not that difficult to do. You just have to sit down with the idea of putting in a context change and say, God, how can I completely change this world so that this character is like absolutely out of his depth, right? And doing that in, a romance or in another, I'm trying to think of like a Sex in the City or something, like kind of an urban story is really great because I think it's not done often enough. So it really makes you stand out from the other authors in this genre. All right, so the best novels, I think, have dramatic context changes. And I'm going to go through a couple of them here. Alice in Wonderland, when she goes down the rabbit hole. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold, when he goes into the kingdom for the first time, is just fantastic. The Wizard of Oz. And, it's so amazing that they were able to do that with the black and white into color. Just amazing. In the movie, I remember seeing that as a child. I'm aging myself now, but I remember seeing that as a child. We actually had black and white TVs at home, and seeing the color for the first time was just fantastic. Okay, and then other ones that I wanted to mention, which is kind of going to get you thinking along these lines of context changes, like Black Beauty, Enchanted, The Lion King. That changes several times, right? Tangled, Beauty and the Beast. Disney is very good, and kids' books especially are very good at changing the world around you, just completely changing the context and making the world not how you thought it was, and making people not how you thought they were, right? I mean, Tangled, she thinks the world is one way, then she leaves her house, then she thinks that the guy is one way, and she thinks her mother's one way, and they keep just flip-flopping back and forth, and it's just wonderful. So if you can, try to develop some of that spontaneous spontaneity and unexpected context changes in your novel, you will just keep readers on the edge of their seat because they really don't know what's happening, right? And then you can go back in and put clues, and it becomes really fantastic. Okay, now there are great opportunities for this at several key times in your novel, okay? So the first one is around the call to action. So, whether you take the red pill or the blue pill, or when Alice goes down the rabbit hole, or Lucy goes into the wardrobe, right? The second great time for this is around the dark moment, and especially for the you're not who I thought you were context change. For romance, it could be around the partner having a dark secret or themselves having a dark secret, having to reveal it. For a mystery, it could be around the murderer being revealed, or suddenly a friend seems like the murderer. We're trying to play around with, people's doubts and fears and that kind of stuff. And third, during the climax, where the hero has a self-realization that they aren't who they thought they were. That should happen, to be honest with you, in every story, in every genre, right? It's really where the hero understands that they are more powerful than they ever thought that they were, and that they could win in a way that they didn't think that they could. So again, there are flat character arcs, but they end up being less satisfying to the reader. So you really, really want a context change and a realization in the character at the climax of the novel. All right, so for me, the second most powerful tool that you have for plotting is plotting by reveals. Why is this? Well, when we're reading a novel, we're really reading to learn about the plot, right? We want to learn things. And that's what makes mysteries or adventures or fantasies so fantastic, because in every chapter, you are learning something new, right? If you can learn to plot by what you're revealing to the reader in each chapter, it is going to do so many amazing things for your genre. For your novel, right? So I'll give you a few examples here. Putting the reveal at the end of the chapter creates a page turner, because basically the reader, they're like, I can't go to bed now. They just found the amulet, So then they keep reading, right? So this is a way to keep readers on the edge of their seats and keep them turning pages, a reveal every single chapter. And if you have short chapters, especially near the climax, if you have short chapters with a lot of reveals, it like really picks up the pace and becomes fantastic. And then if you got a great climax, the reader is so satisfied, right? All right, and also this stops the sagging middle of the novel, right? Because the revelations are going to come kind of like evenly spaced throughout that novel. If you're working with a two-genre novel, one of the things I found myself doing is, having revelations about the two different storylines, but then as I'm getting closer, having those the revelations become bigger or having them become faster. So I'll put a revelation for the point of view character and another character in each chapter, so that the revelations are fantastic for that character and they're fantastic as they're learning more about the world or what's happening or the plot, that kind of thing. So it keeps you from just kind of, meandering along in the middle with nothing to do. It also encourages you to create more complex and layered plots and relationships. So, while if you were just pantsing along, you might think, okay, well, I'll just write this chapter about, her meeting this other guy. Now you're like, oh, what am I going to reveal about him? Or how is this going to matter to her? What am I going to reveal about the major plot or her genre that is going to, pull this along? So if you think about reading by reveals, the first time I did it, it was pretty difficult because I was like, God, I feel like I've told everything about the story. So then you're like, well, wait a minute, I better get a subplot, or I better think bigger and make this plot something that is more amazing so that I have a reveal every time, right? If you only have 3 big reveals in your novel, it's probably not a novel. So, you could do that in a few chapters. So you really want your plot to be complex. You want it to be layered. You want it to have reveals about each of these things. And at first the reveals are pretty small, right? After the call to action, they're searching for information, right? Then the reveals become bigger and bigger. Context changes, another reveal, right? And you want it to keep growing. The second thing I wanted to talk about today was emotional impact. So we haven't talked about this until now, but you always want to put the events with the greatest emotional impact in the point of view of the person who will have the biggest emotional reaction to it. Why? Well, it's because your reader wants to live that emotion through the characters, right? So we would never want a book where it's like, oh, Johnny had a car accident and you have his wife there, but you're going to put it in the friend because the wife is the one who is going to have the most reaction to it. That's the one that's going to make the reader cry, right? So what you want to do is you want to have that reaction front and center. You want to write it. You want them to feel it. I think Ernest Hemingway was the one who said that writing is easy. You just like open a vein and bleed on the page, right? That's kind of what you want to do with this. You always want to make sure that the person who's bleeding is the one that's feeling the greatest reaction to whatever's happening, okay? So that is something to keep in mind. When you're going down and you're plotting your reveals, make sure that those reveals are in the chapters of the person who's going to flip out the most, right? Or be most excited, or be most intrigued, or be most frightened. You always want that character to be front and center when you're revealing that. There are a couple of different ways. So you know how I was saying that we would plot, maybe fantasy reveals in the Elven chapter and science fiction reveals in the Cyborg chapter. There are a couple of times when you would break that. So for example, if a specific magic will save the cyborg's world, you want to reveal it in his chapter, right? She might be like, oh, I'm going to find out, and that's the cliffhanger. Then you go to his chapter and he finds out, oh my God, this is the magic, that will save the world. And it's the opposite for if a specific tech is going to kill all the elves, you would reveal that in her chapter. So she can be like, oh my God, what's this going to do, to all of us? So you want to make sure that, you want to kind of stay with your genres if you can, but there are times when your genres are going to cross, especially near the climax. And this is what kind of weaves the story together, right? This is where you start saying, okay, who's going to have the greatest emotional impact? Let's start weaving this in so that we get some crossover between the fantasy and the sci-fi, and we start to understand how each person's story matters to both characters. Hard to explain, easier to do, believe it or not. The other thing is, of course, since we're plotting by reveals, you want to preferably reveal these big impact scenes near the end of the chapter so that the reader feels the emotion, but then has to wait 2 chapters to get back to that character again. It's one of the beauties of having a 2 POV plot, right? Is that if you have a huge reveal, sometimes they have to wait because you're going to the other character to get back to that character, especially if you split those characters up. If one is investigating in LA and one is investigating in New York, they're not going to know the reveals of the other person. So it's wonderful. And also that keeps your reader on the edge of their seat, right? I remember being so into a book one time that I skipped the intervening chapter to get back to that POV character so that I could find out what happened, right? So, that's a great way to have more emotional impact is toward the end of the chapter when you're going to another POV. All right, so my next thing is do the unexpected. You want to try to do the unexpected as much as possible. And what does that mean? You're just going to veer away from the events that the reader would think would logically come next. Okay? So, in The Wizard of Oz, they finally get here. It's going to be so incredible. they meet this guy who knows everything, and then they figure out that he's behind the curtain. And then for her to get home, all she has to do is click her heels together, and she finds out she was already there, right? Um, it's amazing when you do that, and it's amazing when you do that all the way through the novel. So what you'll find is, with Wizard of Oz, this was written so long ago, I think around 1900, I think it was published. With that book, you're going to find that there's pretty much just one context change. It's very simple. There's a good witch and a bad witch. And, we have the four characters, which represent four different things, right? There's our categories again. So there's only one or two of these major context changes or reveals. And they're, actually, when her house flies there's one at the beginning when her house flies and ends up in Oz. And then there's the ones at the end. But trying to think if there's a context change around where she gets to the Wicked Witch or the flying monkeys, or if it's just pretty, kind of what you would expect. I haven't seen that or read it in so long. But anyway, there's just a few, right? Today, when you're looking at these types of novels, there will be so many context changes. I can't even tell you, Artemis Fowl is a wonderful YA novel for boys, reluctant readers. And I mean, I was on the edge of my seat so many times there because everything was just unexpected. And he was doing, context changes and hidden allies and this kind of stuff that were just fantastic. So we can use this idea of the unexpected to always spruce up our story. When the character gets what they want, it isn't what they expected that it would be. The Indiana Jones movies are another great example. Every female's not what he expects, right? Even in the first one, he goes to Miriam and she slaps him. It's just awesome, right? It's not at all what you expect. Every artifact is not what he expected. It's just fantastic. Walter Mitty, whenever he gets to the spot where the guy's supposed to be, the guy's always not there. And then something crazy happens, right? So, doing the unexpected creates wonderful stories where you can go places that the reader didn't imagine, right? And that is what keeps them on the edge of their seat. As you're going, they're like, wow, I have no idea what is going to happen next from this author, right? And especially if you keep it on genre, you have an amazing character arc. If you keep the bones of the story intact, right, then basically all of the amazing action that you're going to do and the context change and stuff like that just become like the icing on the cake, right? All right, so we want to remember chapters always begin with the point of view character having a goal, right? And it ends with them never getting what they want for an unexpected reason, okay? So they have this goal, something unexpected happens, and they don't get it. Or they get it, but it makes everything worse in an unexpected way, okay? So you have a chance every single chapter to do something unexpected. And it usually has to do with the character's goal, but sometimes it can have to do with other characters or, other plot devices that you want to use. So, but you have the chance to do it in every chapter. All right. So between your context changes and your reveals and doing the unexpected, you have three massive tools at your disposal, which can, 10x your plot right there. But we are going to really 10x it tomorrow, right? So the last thing I want to mention is to look at the conventions of your second genre, right? So in today's assignment, you're going to plot the even chapters using your second genre, and you want to weave the second genre into your first storyline, focusing on kind of the same plot, but it's from the different point of view, right? And that character is going to need different things to solve their character arc. So, you might have to double your reveals and make things more complicated. You're going to have to think about what that character needs for their character arc. And then again, I encourage you to go online and search for tropes and conventions of your second genre. For example, fantasy readers expect authors to use some of the following: wizards, warriors, royalty, epic quests, unique worlds, dragons or mythical creatures, and magic. Questions about good versus evil, questions about the price of winning, right? Questions about what it costs to do magic. So you want to make sure that when you're plotting the second genre, that you take just as much focus as you did on plotting your first one. And that was a huge mistake that I made in the beginning. I basically did all of the plotting with the science fiction, and I didn't take enough time to focus on the elves, what was happening with them, all of that. So I had to really fix that in editing. I had to be like, okay, how am I going to spend equal time on both of these? And what I found out was it really happens in the plotting stages, right? So if you take this time now to plot out this second character and to plot from that point of view, it's really going to serve you well when you're writing your novel. Okay, so I have a creating a plot to worksheet for you, which is going to focus on that second genre, and we're going to go through that during our sprints today. If you are leaving now, please don't forget to subscribe because we'll be back tomorrow and every day for the next 9 weeks, Monday through Friday. And like, comment, share with your writing friends. There are so many people who want to write a novel, but they don't really have a framework for it and lessons that go sequentially to building up the novel. And I want to say congratulations on finishing day 6. Today, you want to make sure that you finish your homework, okay? Because tomorrow is the last plotting day, and we're going to take this plot and we're going to 10x it. But this plot has to be done in order to do that, if that makes sense. And my last question: did you learn something amazing today? You can leave it in the comments, and anything that you have to share with someone else. We can all learn from each other, right? All right, so we are going to take a small break. And then we are going to be back to do our first sprint. Let's see if I can get this to work. Great. And I will see you shortly, all right? All right. Okay, and we are back with our first sprint. So, if you take a look at the worksheet here, today you are going to look back at day 5 and you are going to fill in your second character point of view, second genre, in that table. Okay, we'll use the day 6 worksheet later today, but first we want to fill in the second genre with kind of your preliminary thoughts about how this is going to work. Really think about how the action is going to come together for both characters at the climax of the novel and how you're going to try to fulfill both of those character arcs, right? So each character arc is different. One is going to need to realize one thing, the other character is going to have to realize something else, but they have to do it through that main point or through that climax of the novel, right? All right. So for the first sprint for 40 minutes, that's all we're going to do. Okay? So it's the second genre and weaving them together. If you have any questions, you can put it in the comments. I'm going to be here all day. So let's get started. Okay, we have finished sprint one. How did it go? I'm so interested to hear from you and whether you found this process easier than you thought it would be, whether your mind is bringing up things more easily since you've had that 2 day break, you know? So, anyway, we are going to take a 5 minute break. And this time is drinking water and dancing to a song. So I will see you back here in 5 minutes. Um, Starting now. And don't forget to comment if you have something amazing to tell me about your, or to tell other readers about your experience. I'm sorry, other writers about your experience. Okay, so what song did you dance to? Let us know in the comments. I'm particularly partial to Coldplay, Sky Full of Stars, and also Starset songs. If you haven't ever heard of Starset or seen their videos, they're kind of great. They all have a science fiction theme, and I like their music. It's kind of dark and angsty, alternative. All right, so we are starting our next sprint. Um, and this time we are going to meditate. If you're finished with your first assignment, which was to do that second genre, right? Then we are going to kind of meditate on this plot. And I want you to think about where can you add context changes, unexpected events, and amazing reveals. This is so important because, and even if you add a reveal that then changes something else down the line, don't be afraid to do that. Okay? At this point, we are trying to make this story bigger and better, and we're really trying to think about it and bring in all of our imagination, anything that we can imagine to happen that would be just absolutely incredible. That's what we're trying to write down now, okay? So don't be afraid to do something crazy and think about where that's going to take your novel, okay? So in this sprint, we are going to look for specifically context changes, unexpected events, and amazing reveals, and thinking about how those could change your story, right? All right, here we go. And I will see you back here in 20 minutes. Wow, that sprint went fast, right? We are already at break two, and or sorry, break three, right? And today is 2 minutes of upper body stretching, just to get ourselves back into the week. So I will see you back here in 5 minutes, starting now. Okay, here we are again, ready for our next sprint. Um, all right, so I wanted to kind of tell you about what we're going to do on the today's worksheet, page 3, I believe. All right, so this is not the final plot. I want to tell you that so that you don't put this in your book Bible yet, okay? So, what you're going to do today is you're going to use this last 2 pages. I believe they look like this on your worksheet. We have plot 1, character 1, plot 2, character 2, and then we have our notes for major context changes and unexpected happenings, right? This is an example that I have from Morgan, okay? It's just the first few chapters. But what I wanted you to see was that I have here 4 different colors that I use. So the first color is black, and I'm using that just for the plot. The second color is red, and I'm using that just for the romance. The third color is for the cliffhangers or the reveals that are coming at the end of each chapter. And then I have this kind of turquoise blue that I'm using for context changes. All right, so it's any huge context change in the mind of the characters. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to use these different characters to make sure that you have everything that you need interspersed through your story, right? Um, so and if you hadn't, let's say that you just plotted your 2 genres, but you haven't put in your romance yet, this is the time to take a look at Gwen Hayes' uh, worksheet, right, on Romancing the Beat, or her book. And if you wanted to add in anything else that you want to kind of follow along in the story, this is the time to do it. And what you're going to do out here is just describe those extra things that are happening, right? So that way we can really see what's happening behind the scenes, right? And it kind of gives you an idea, especially for pacing, whether you have these things spaced far enough apart, whether they're equal between characters. So, for example, the first time they both hold hands because they're frightened, and then he holds her hand, and then she reaches for his hand. So, I'm trying to make it to where um, the characters are getting kind of equal screen time, or equal action when they're expressing their emotion for each other. All right, so we are going to start. I hope that's enough of an explanation. If you have any questions, you can always send me a comment or an email, right? We're going to do our next sprint, and you're going to start, if you're ready, plotting these on there with your different colors, okay? If you're not ready and you're still thinking about, doing your second genre and melding them together, you've got plenty of time. We ended a little bit early today with the lecture, so I'm going to do 5 sprints instead of 4. You've got plenty of time to work through all this, all right? So just keep going wherever you are. I just wanted to make sure to give you an explanation before you start. And here we go. Okay, our third sprint is done. How are you doing? How do you like the three color method if you're there? I'm very interested. That's just something that I came up with. I haven't seen anyone else really do it, but it gave me a way to keep everything in one worksheet while still making everything stand out. So I'm very interested in what you think of it. Again, these are just my strategies. You know, you can always change any of these to be to do them however you want. So anyway, if you have anything special, leave it in the comments. Let us know, right? And we're going to start our fourth coffee break. And today it's 2 minutes of lower body stretching. All right. Um, we will start right now, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. And we're back. Hope you had a great break there. Um, we are on to sprint number 4 for 20 minutes. Um, Again, we're just going through and filling out our new plot chart. Very important to make it as detailed as you need to for each of the revelations and to make it as complex as you can. And to go back and look at it in two different ways. So we want to look at it for plot progression, we want to look at it for um, character arc progression, right? Um, and make sure that these things come together in the climax in a way that resolves the characters, right? All right. Have fun. We're going to do another 20 minutes, and I will see you back shortly. And we are back. How did it go? I hope it's going really well. Um, I know if you haven't plotted this way before, it's probably a new process, but the more you do it, the more I think you will enjoy it. Um, one of the great things, that attracts people to writing is how much they, can think. And doing these kind of plots, having the complexity in it, really does credit to you as an author. And I just think it's such a wonderful process, artistic process. Um, all right. Well, we are going to take another break, and then we will do one more sprint just for good measure. So let's go ahead and take a break, and I will see you back here in 5 minutes. All right, fantastic. We are back for our last sprint of the day. Time to put those finishing touches on your two genres and making sure that everything looks good for your plot before we 10 exit tomorrow. So let's go into our last sprint starting strong, and I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Okay, congratulations on finishing our first 5 sprint day. Um, we are going to be back here tomorrow, and I hope you finished both genres of your plot. And we'll be back here to 10x your plot tomorrow. So, really looking forward to it. I'm very interested to see what you think of my strategy. Um, and don't forget to finish the homework, right? Because you have to have it done before you can start tomorrow's lesson. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with any of your author friends. And if you learned anything amazing today, or you have something that you want to share about your plot, or your writing process, or what you're getting out of this class, anything like that, go ahead and leave a comment. And I will see you tomorrow. And always remember, you are the magic behind the novel, right? The readers are depending on you. So have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.